I was having y'all, your boy Rico from Street Scores coming with a Rico report, a July 10th edition. We got to talk about how Washington is rejecting Daron Payne trade requests. I also have a few random Commander updates. I have a couple of NFL updates, and then no Rico report would be done without a few stats, rankings, all kinds of opinions and things that we get to debate about, laugh about, get angry about, whatever. Also, gotta have another Terry McLaurin appreciation section. Once I build up some more stats and opinions on Terry's new deal and things like that, I'm gonna keep reporting it. And I felt like I built up enough to have another video on that, and just a whole bunch of random stuff. Y'all know these Rico reports get pretty random. It's pretty much almost like a podcast in a way. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, I will be live streaming tomorrow, as in Monday at 6 p.m. It's going to be a call-in show, so we're going to do a check-in on the whole rebranding, like the jerseys, logo, name, helmets, all of that type of stuff. I'm gonna let y'all call in and give y'all opinions on everything. We're gonna talk about the Terry McLaurin deal. We're gonna talk about training camp coming up, all of that type of stuff. So make sure y'all stay tuned for that. It will be again tomorrow, as in Monday at 6 p.m. So make sure y'all pull up and call into the show. And I'm working on making that a weekly thing. I'm not sure if I'm gonna leave it at Monday or we're gonna move it to Sunday. Either way, we will be doing this weekly throughout training camp as well. And without further ado, let's get it. All right, so first of all, and this is relatively old news. This happened like over a week ago, but I didn't talk about it in any of my videos yet. So just in case there are people out there that are only listening to me and nobody else, and I'm like your only news source, I just feel like I always need to update on everything, even if I'm super late on it. And the Commanders have rejected recent trade inquiries for starting defensive tackle Daron Payne. So that just tells me, first of all, that we are in like a relatively win now mode. Like they want him here. They traded for Carson Wentz. We went high floor guys rather than high ceiling guys in the draft. We're trying to win now. We may not be a Super Bowl contender, but they're definitely trying to at least make the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game or two. That's definitely the goal and the expectation for the season, the way everything's going. Because Daron Payne probably could fetch a pretty good draft pick, some pretty good value, especially around the trade deadline, like I've already spoken about. If you wait until like the trade deadline, it's more clear and concise who are the true Super Bowl contenders. There's going to be at least 1 to 3 teams that feel like they may be a Daron Payne away. That's the last missing piece for them being a strong Super Bowl contender. And you got to do what you got to do whenever you have a Super Bowl window open. You got to go all in. You seen the Rams, what they did and how they just won the Super Bowl. They may be right back next year with them retooling and everything. And I could definitely see at least 1 to 3 teams convincing themselves that they may be a Daron Payne away from being a strong Super Bowl contender. And I can also see his trade value going up because of that. Right now, if we would have let him go after this season, just let him walk in free agency as an unrestricted free agent, at the very best what we get is a 3rd round compensatory pick for him, and that depends on what contract he gets from another team. It could end up being worse than that. I feel like around the trade deadline, late October, depending on what's going on, Daron Payne may go for a 2nd or higher. We'll see. But at the end of the day, I just hope we pay him long term. I hope we get a deal done. Worst case scenario is franchise tag. At that point, you might as well just let him walk for the 3rd round compensatory pick, because franchise tagging him and delaying him isn't going to really help, because this upcoming offseason you have Daron Payne and Cole Holcomb and a few other guys like Joey Sly. After that, you have Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel, William Jackson, Montez Sweat, Cameron Curl. I mean, it only gets worse. So if you can't pay Daron Payne this offseason, or at least this upcoming offseason, what makes you think you'll be able to get it done the following offseason in 2024? So it's just like the franchise tag makes the least amount of sense. Now, there is another angle on this. Maybe they're rejecting Daron Payne trade inquiries because maybe the trades that are being offered are just terrible. Maybe the highest they're getting offered is like a 5th round pick. Maybe they're denying it because of that, but I think honestly it's more so because they want to win now. They want to keep Daron Payne as an important piece on this defense, on this team, so that we can have our best roster. I think if anything, we're shopping for players more so than for future picks, because we're trying to win now. That's why I can definitely see us signing an Anthony Barr in August, like John Kahn reported that we may do, if by then we see that the young linebackers aren't ready. We've had some training camp practices. We've even had like a preseason game or two to see what they can do. If they're not playing the part, if they're not up in their game, go and get an Anthony Barr at that point. But there's a reason why they're not signing Anthony Barr just yet. They want to give those young linebackers an opportunity. But again, if they're not ready, Anthony Barr, and that's the reason you're not trading away Daron Payne in July, because they really want him to play this entire season now. Now, maybe come trade deadline, maybe if our season is just for some reason tarnished, like we just have no hopes of making the playoffs, even though, I mean, with as weak as the NFC is, I think you would have to wait until like late November to truly know that you're not going to make the playoff. I mean, the 7th seed may even get in at neutral or below 500, as bad as the NFC is this upcoming season. So it's just like, how would you even know by late October if your season is done? But if for some reason, like we're just winless by then, and clearly the season is done, and everybody's just hurt or whatever, then maybe they consider trading Daron Payne to a team that is willing to give up a lot of value because they're, like I said, a Super Bowl contender. But I think it would take both. Our season would have to be done, and there would have to be a Super Bowl contender that wants them. If we don't have both of those, say a Super Bowl contender wants them, but we look like we can fight for like a top 5 seed in the NFC, I think it's highly unlikely that we trade Daron Payne at that point, because it will send mixed messages. But we'll see, man. This is just an ever-ending saga. I think ultimately, like my guess, I hope we sign him long term, but I think ultimately he'll probably just end up walking in free agency. Now, moving on to Washington Commanders news, the more general stuff. I know some of y'all may have heard there were several fires extinguished at the RFK Stadium, and that was back on Tuesday. And it was crazy looking at the video how high the grass was and how much it wasn't maintained. It was crazy. Also, the Commanders will wear a patch on their jerseys this year celebrating the 90th anniversary of the franchise. So shouts out to the Washington franchise for the 90th anniversary. Also, the Washington Commanders appear to land Fanatics as the team's sportsbook partner, according to the Washington Business Journal. So now the Washington Commanders have teamed up with Fanatics as their sportsbook partner. Now, in NFL news, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell told CNBC that Sunday Ticket will most likely leave DirecTV and end up with a streaming service for the 2023 season. A final decision is expected in the coming months. So it looks like DirecTV, I mean, people already hated DirecTV, and now if Sunday Ticket leaves it, boy, that's it for the company. That company better do everything they can to keep Sunday Ticket, because that's the only thing keeping them afloat. And also, the Las Vegas Raiders are naming Sandra Douglas Morgan as their new team president. That's big. Huge congratulations. She will be the first black woman to serve as an NFL team president in league history. So shouts out to her. Shouts out to the Las Vegas Raiders for making that move. Now on to the random stats, rankings, and opinions. Somebody came out with the most expensive offenses in 2022, according to Money. Detroit is first with $123 million spent on their offense. That's crazy. Dallas is second with 122, and if anything, they only got slightly worse than last year, so that's good for us. But then we're third, technically tied with Dallas for second, until you start to get to the thousands. And in the smaller dollars, we have $122 million spent on our offense as well. And that's crazy because I don't even think Terry's deal is included in that. If we're talking about 2022, Terry's deal doesn't take into effect until 2023 and beyond. So even without Terry, we still have the third most expensive offense in the NFL. That is crazy. I'm expecting explosive plays, man. And I'm expecting to see Curtis Samuel on that field because he's a big reason why it costs so much. Also, there was a list of the most underrated players on all 32 NFL teams. They picked Antonio Gibson for us. They said Gibson finished 6th in rushing DVOA as a rookie in 2020, then rushed for 1,000 yards on a bad team with no passing game and while playing through multiple injuries. His reward was the team bringing back J.D. McKissic, even though Gibson is more than qualified to be a good receiver. And then the Commanders drafted Brian Robinson Jr. in the 3rd round. Gibson at 6'2", 220 pounds, has feature back size and it showed feature back skills, but the Commanders' moves might be preventing them from being one. So basically, they don't like the fact that we brought back J.D. McKissic, and especially the way we did it from the Bills, where he was pretty much good as gone, and then we found a way to bring him back, and then also drafting Brian Robinson in the 3rd round. They feel like Antonio Gibson has loads of star potential, and all we're doing is suppressing it by bringing too many other guys in, stepping over him, with a J.D. McKissic on 3rd downs in the passing game, and Brian Robinson on 1st and 2nd downs in the short yardage game. And shouts out to Mark Tyler of Hogs Haven. He tweeted out in 2021, Antonio Gibson ranked 2nd in 1st downs with 65, 4th in rushing attempts with 258, 6th in rushing yards with 1,037, 7th in broken or missed tackles with 21, and 10th in yards after contact with 549. But at the same time, he was 1st in the NFL in both fumbles with 6 and fumbles lost with 4. So that's the highs and lows of Antonio Gibson. But I'm thinking he's about to bounce back and go crazy this year, especially now that we're going to have a passing attack to where teams can't stack 7 or 8 in the box. That's going to open things up for him a lot. Also, Pro Football Focus Mike ranked Washington's secondary 24th out of 32. There's a lot of concerns with when we tried to do match coverage, we look like a bottom 8 secondary in the NFL. And then when Jack Del Rio started to simplify things and put William Jackson in more man coverage responsibilities, we started to look like a top 10 secondary, or at least pieces of it. And now when you add Percy Butler and you have a lot of these young guys getting better and better, and then can't forget about Cameron Curl, I think we could potentially at least have a top half of the league secondary, especially if our defensive line is doing what they're supposed to do. It's going to be hard to isolate the secondary from the defensive line. And if the defensive line is dominating, the secondary is going to look top 10. Now, isolated, don't know about top 10. But top half of the league, I can see that being a thing again, especially with how dominant I think our defensive line is going to be this upcoming season. And we have a lot of young, really athletic, talented pieces that are only getting better with reps. And we're going to see in training camp, man. I'm excited about Percy Butler, Derek Forrest, all of these guys. And again, Cameron Curl's only getting better. William Jackson's only going to get more comfortable. We'll see. And then Benjamin St. Juste is a huge X factor there. So we'll see. Also, Cody Benjamin of CBS Sports ranked every roster in the NFL. We came in at 25th. I definitely think that's really hard. I think we're severely underrated as a team. I mean, they have us under the Panthers and the Jets. Now, granted, the Jets at least got better, but it's still like I gotta see it. And then the Panthers, I mean, they were already bad. And then, I mean, this was before they even traded for Baker Mayfield. So he felt like they had a better roster than us before the Baker Mayfield trade. We could possibly even argue the Saints. But we'll see, man. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Can't really debate about that too much. We're just going to have to show them with action. We're going to have to go out there and just ball out. Also, Pro Football Focus came out with their top position groups. They said the Browns have the best running backs, and I ain't mad at that. Nick Chubb, Georgia Bulldog, I feel it. Bengals have the best wide receiver group. The Eagles have the best O-line, which I can kind of see. We'll see, though. The Rams have the best D-line, and, I mean, other than Aaron Donald, those other guys aren't bad, but Aaron Donald is clearly carrying. But, like, I mean, Pro Football Focus just came out with a defensive line rankings video that I reported on just a few weeks ago. They had us second, and Aaron Donald was clearly the reason why they were number one. If Aaron Donald would not have re-signed with the Rams, we would have had the number one defensive line. So just to keep that in mind, that's Aaron Donald carrying that Rams defensive line. Again, the other guys aren't sorry, but if we're just talking about talent across the board, we have the better defensive line. We have the most balanced defensive line. The Rams, when you have Aaron Donald, I mean, I think it's really hard to argue against the fact that you do have the best defensive line. Linebackers, they have the 49ers, and then DBs, they have the Ravens. Of course, it's kind of hard to dethrone the Bills with how great they've been, but that Ravens secondary has so much potential. Adding Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton in the same offseason, and their secondary was already good before that. That's just ridiculous, man. So I can't argue against that. I guess the groups that I feel like are the most debatable would be probably the Bengals with the receivers, even though, I mean, I feel like T. Higgins has never gotten enough credit that he's deserved. And then you just add Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd, who's carried my fantasy teams through a couple of weeks the past few years. I could definitely argue they have one of the most underrated receiving cores, but the best, that's pretty debatable. And then also the Eagles offensive line, I think that's fairly debatable as well. But I mean, all of these technically aren't necessarily wrong. I just think the Bengals wide receivers and the Eagles offensive line have the most debatable things. And I also wanted to point out, again, by Pro Football Focus themselves saying that we had the second best, it's because of Aaron Donald. We don't have the best, as in the Washington Commanders. And moving on to some more Terry McLaurin appreciation. Remember, Terry McLaurin has had 8 different quarterbacks throwing to him before Carson Wentz got here. You have 123 attempts from Taylor Heineke, 98 attempts from Dwayne Haskins, 52 attempts from Alex Smith, 41 from Case Keenum, 31 from Kyle Allen, 7 from Colt McCoy, 4 from Garrett Gilbert, and 1 from Logan Thomas. Remember when Alex Smith didn't have any arm strength, we brought in Logan Thomas to throw like a somewhat deep bomb that one play. Kind of like how Taysom Hill would come in to throw a deep bomb for Drew Brees at times. So poor Terry McLaurin. I mean, that's 7 quarterbacks and a tight end / ex quarterback. Logan Thomas technically doesn't count though. There's only 1 play and he didn't like start at quarterback like all of those other guys, but still, it's ugly. And at the same time, Terry McLaurin in his career ran 1,629 routes, was targeted on only 357 of them, and only 62% of them were catchable when he was targeted. Sadly for us though, Carson Wentz was ranked dead last in accuracy over the last 2 seasons combined, minimum 600 attempts. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, with this receiving core, guys are always going to be so open. We'll see if that even matters. Also, Terry McLaurin's 222 receptions are the most through 3 seasons in Washington franchise history. Also, Terry McLaurin is the first wide receiver to reach 1,000 plus receiving yards in consecutive seasons since Henry Ellert from 1994 to 1996. But I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all already knew that. I feel like that's already been talked about, but just wanted to make sure y'all knew that just in case you didn't. Also, McLaurin is one of 3 NFC wide receivers, including Justin Jefferson and Davante Adams, with at least 75 receptions and 1,000 receiving yards in each of the past 2 seasons. Well, now Davante Adams is over there in the AFC, but before then, from the 2020 season and the 2021 season, Terry McLaurin is in good company with only the likes of Justin Jefferson and Davante Adams. It doesn't matter what the statistic is. If those are the 3 guys and that's it in a certain club, you know Terry McLaurin is doing something right. Also, shouts out to Sam Block on Twitter. He tweeted out, just giggled at some Terry McLaurin scouting reports I decided to read and enjoy. So after we signed Terry McLaurin to an extension, he went to go look up past scouting reports on Terry McLaurin while he was coming out of the draft. It is really funny. Somebody said day 3 guy at best. Somebody said not a starting option in the NFL. They said weak hands. They said afraid of contact. They said low upside at the next level. And they said depth receiver is his ceiling. And then he tweeted out, how about team captain, elite playmaker, and moneymaker in all caps. Also, shouts out to Al Galdi. He tweeted out, it's significant that over the last year, 2 high-level Washington players in Jonathan Allen and Terry McLaurin have chosen to sign extensions. Yes, money talks, but guys that good choosing to stay is an endorsement of what the Commanders are building in their football operations, and I completely agree. Cause yeah, I mean, we did give them good money, but they could have gotten the same amount of money or more elsewhere, honestly. You saw all the different teams and fan bases photoshopping Terry McLaurin in their jerseys. Terry McLaurin easily could have gotten the same money, probably a better deal, more money, maybe over the course of more years if he wanted to, even though I think he wanted lesser years so that he can capitalize on getting a new contract, another market-setting contract while he's still in his prime. But either way, Jonathan Allen and Terry McLaurin chose to stay with this team. That was definitely a deliberate decision. And also it's noteworthy that the Commanders are starting to string together contracts for their core guys. And JD McKissick had a great quote on it. I mean, y'all already saw Antonio Gibson was more so like a sigh of relief, like thank goodness so y'all can stop asking me about it. And players shouldn't have to feel like that. Quote, I'm fired up, man. I think when a guy like Terry gets paid, it really gives you a restored faith in the team that you reward guys for doing it the right way. And that came from Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen continued to say, Terry, I don't think there's a better example of that. For a guy like Terry to get paid, it means a lot to a lot of the guys in the locker room. So I'm fired up. I know he's fired up. And we're just, as a team and organization, we're all just fired up right now, unquote. And I'm pretty sure Jonathan Allen isn't the only one that feels that way. I'm pretty sure the majority of the team, if not their entire team, is really happy to see Terry McLaurin get paid. And that restores the faith in the organization. And not even just from players currently on the team. Players on other teams look at that and be like, okay, well, the Washington Commanders give the guys on their team the deals that they want. So if I'm looking around, I'm an unrestricted free agent, I may put them higher on my list now after they paid Jonathan Allen and Terry McLaurin the money that they wanted. And then before we get up out of here, Commanders Realm had a good point. I still think the Commanders should try and re-sign Landon Collins, and I think Landon Collins should want to re-sign with the Commanders. So I'm just putting that out there again. That tweet just reminded me of that, you know, I'm gonna keep bringing up Landon Collins because I think it needs to get done. At this point, it's a campaign. Just like Anthony Barr, though, I think they're waiting to see what the young guys can do in training camp. At least give them one preseason game to go out there and show what they can do. If it doesn't work out, then you go and bring back a Landon Collins. If it doesn't work out, you go and sign an Anthony Barr. I mean, hopefully you bring in both for really cheap. I just don't see how that would hurt us in any way. And then on top of all of that, you even still have Eric Flowers out there as an option. So if there's an injury, maybe you bring in Eric Flowers to substitute back in at guard. Who knows, man? We still have players out there that are definitely available that can help this team. But I just think we're waiting to see what's really going on before we go and sign some more guys. But we have options out there. It's not like it's just completely dry out there in free agency. There are guys out there that can easily help this team. But again, don't hold your breath on it. It's gonna be at least until August until we start bringing guys like that in. So, but yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like if you liked it, if you learned anything. Like I said, make sure you pull up to the live stream tomorrow, as in Monday, July 11th at 6 p.m. It's a call-in show, so I'll talk a little bit, but I'm mostly just open up the phone lines for y'all to call in and give y'all opinions on everything, the jerseys, Terry McLaurin's deal, who do you think will be the next guy on the team that will get a deal, everything that's going down right now. Make sure y'all pull up, call in, and let your voices be heard. And of course, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now, man. I really appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. I'm out.